Well, it's no. Playing. Good.
Well,
All here. Well, the pride of trade, we'll go ahead and we'll recognize them. Because when you announce, did you guys want to announce, like? I would say you all did a wonderful job. Great work.
I'm actually, really good. I just wanted to put a shout out. Hey, these have worked together. It is implemented. Which is part of why what we introduced Carol introduced in a second. It's so successful. So you'll also get to see the fruits tonight and tomorrow night. They do a phenomenal job, and one of the things that has been really cool to see is I taught them an elective each week last year. And they didn't hit the ground running with it. What happened is it allowed them to be staged in front of other students. And I think through that, they've got other kids that kind of be inspired and grow. We all know it. If you want to come up and let you introduce yourself and you'll open that just stuff and tell about Ireland and the ambulance. You're welcome.
Well, I got a few archivos here, but that's okay. So Island Yay is the district day festival that we take kids to every year. They can audition for it. We were really lucky. We had 14 kids were selected this year. Awesome. And like we said, the performances are always wonderful. They're great opportunities for the kids to go work with other kids around the state. Performing a big ensemble. They're awesome. Very proud of all of them. So I'm glad they're getting some recognition tonight. So when I call your name, I'll give you a certificate. Then if you want to go over there, so we can take pictures together. Every day, okay. Audrey Anderson, who's in 8th grade. Who's basketball tonight. Nora Nelson, who I know is ill tonight. Kendall, who I believe has musical practice tonight. Aria Murley. Eva Hayes. Cole, who is probably the concert, and Jonathan Cole. Wendy Copeland, who's also right here tonight. But Allison Lomas, who is not here either. Debbie Shuckman, who I saw. Hello, Debbie. Ellie Goding.
Don't take a picture. Don't take a picture. Come on in and get us.
We got the toll tonight. Thank you very much.
Your dad. But you're like, "Yeah, I got the 45-minute meeting down. That's how I do this.
All right. Good. All right. Enough meeting. Okay, good over there. Change it up. All right, fair enough. All right, that was great. We will now open up the communications and audience and public comment. No, Laura, no, no, you don't say, all right, fair. Yeah, very good. Oh, then, you will move. All right, great. Approval for the, I haven't led in a couple months, so to make sure. The approval for the November regular meeting minutes, November committee meeting minutes, December bill totaling $112,700.50. And the December payroll, $316.02. December's treasurer report and student.
Go first.
Yeah, we only have kind of, that. As I mentioned, the fires at the end of the boat are really active. One of the things that they, like, hey, we have extra people over trailer, so kids come in and looking for really the season, and they go take care of the community. So one of the things that they've done recently is the rock pay ladies and then people around our event. And you know that they've talked. As I briefly mentioned earlier, they would be at the conference tonight, and then also the fire festival. From at 6:30. So they usually do sold out with sound and together to grow a stable business. As a staff here at Illinois, we have always done, nothing, so we decide for children, like, for the college. So this year we were able to provide for 7 children, full of so that's not, that's like every gift, additional. That's how we're looking for. Marcy Ball has said that for us. I just put it up in the house. And it's okay, so never went to recommend. Like applied to the yeah, I'll tremendously they've been wrapping. Just in the package is like, I pretending they're like, it's not a magazine, I don't know, and then, not many people probably want to even know, but they're all Cameron and stuff like that. I was like, looking at Kim, and I'm like looking around, and I'm like, I think girl. But she's retired and she loves So we also started the month off with a weekly day, which is on December 5th. So this one is focused on respect, and that's always fun to see. Students kind of learn about what that looks like and then it's actually apply it. So we had a parent bring another child, she actually has 2 students in this group right now, but also one who is high school. She came and talked to the students about how everybody has basically with another way of saying like there's a reason from our experiences and from our upbringing as to why we are what we are. And that it's really important in situations, whether they're social or at school or professional or personal, that we kind of stop and pause and consider that person's perspective and where they're coming from, and what their background is like, to help them show respect at the same time. She did an amazing job, actually. The 7th and 8th graders were in middle grade communication, and it was a full hour. So I was very healthy done a little bit, like, to be honest, I don't know if it was like sitting for an hour. But I think because we did it early enough, that was really great, did a great job at that. And then 5th and 6th, they were a little bit more rowdy, but she totally just like played with it. And she went with it, and it's the first song, it's this before song. We also had students who made, they were for the Bleed Blue Blood Drive, in 2010. They made packages for people who gave blood. So 7th graders did that. 8th graders got to go over to storytelling different shifts and how kind of that's when we were there. And also these two countries are going to read that because I heard them like doing indoors. Yeah. And then we also heard this was the period of May tournament and as far as Thursday, we have really ended it with a happy family to honor girls basketball, boys basketball during. This is it. 50 weeks, no, right. Oh, yeah.
Kind of similar at Prairie Hill. We had a lot of fun family events at Prairie Hill over the last 3 weeks. So a special shout out to students and families, teachers, and PSA for making this a fun month. Also, Mrs. Patmore, thank you to her for coordinating our nothing event. We did the staff purchase gifts for 2 million. The first event that we had was our PJ's reading night. It was a great success. I wanted to thank all of our readers, Mrs. Mathewson, Mrs. Mortimer, Mrs. Heckner, Mrs. Roberson, Mrs. Werner, Mrs. Shadini, and Mr. Tate, Mrs. Dominic, and Mrs. Espander. Culvers did donate the vanilla and chocolate ice cream. They sent 300 dishes. By the end of the night, we didn't have any dishes, so that's probably by 400. I think we had a few people come through for a second dish of ice cream. So we had the, kind of the pre-K through 1st grade and then a little break set up for 2nd through 4th. So families did participate. They had a couple extra ice cream dishes, but I think there was about 250 people. This year when they came in, they got popsicle sticks to go to one of the 4 rooms. That really helped out. Last year, they would just all show up to the closest room that run 4 rotations of stories. So it would be like one room and have like 50 people in it, and the other one really had like 4, which we kind of rotate through. This way we had 4 rooms, and each session really did have between 15 and 20 students and their families. So it was very nice. I also want to thank the students and Mrs. Allen, if you were there on Wednesday, for putting on a great show at our winter concerts. Once again, I'm really overwhelmed by the support attendance we have to get to packed crowds. Thank you for also a special shout out to the specialist teachers for being flexible and working at Allen for rehearsal. Mr. Jimmy and his crew moving and setting up the risers both at Prairie Hill for rehearsal and moving them over here. It was a great event. Over the last 3 weeks, these 3 weeks between Thanksgiving and Christmas, which are great. Always a great time at school. I was really getting excited about all the things. But I did want to shout out going through the classrooms over the last really 10 to 12 days or so. Teachers are really embracing the holiday spirit. Students are really engaged with good content and curriculum and really impressed with engagement. wow, this will be really exciting time here. And just to sum it up, we'll see you all until January. So please enjoy your holidays with your family, and friends, and happy New Year. Okay, we can actually have together, PowerPoint presentation here for I will go.
Right, yeah. Might be part of the reason.
What am I paying? I mean, I would have brought the baby if I knew you were gonna say.
No, he's not. Buddy, clarify. I'll be.
Okay, I guess I'm taking it away. Last year we did so Kim, you're running the show, right? You're running the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, you let me know when to. Go ahead and go to the next one. If you remember from the board, from the presentation last year, the state calculates a score, a decimal score, based on certain indicators. Last year, we were lower in chronic absenteeism and our climate survey. Those are two areas we had focused on this year. Well, it doesn't work on this.
Yeah, red dot. Oh, no.
Come on. That's why I wanted to go first. Great. So we made improvements in chronic absenteeism and the climate survey. The growth area, we actually went backwards from last year to this year. But proficiency, we once again got all of the points for proficiency. So we had this discussion last year that in the state of Illinois, you get a score out of 100 points. Right as of in school year 2025, they put for Prairie Hill 59% of our score towards our school ratings, mental learning, exemplary, was put in the growth category. I explained that. But only 18% is put on proficiency. So for the second year in a row, we have students that are performing and doing everything very well according to the state. I'll let Ms. Andrews talk to you about proficiency. But our students are performing really, really well. They're performing at or above grade level. And that's great. However, they put more weight on how those students grow from year to year. So a student, in essence, students that are performing at a lower level, if they can get up to a higher level, the state rewards that when they do calculation. So I did put the paragraph in there from ISBE right before we released it, and I can go over it later. But to sum it up, the state in their district has decided that they feel like they are misrepresenting because they are overemphasizing one metric over the other. In essence, we are not being rewarded because our kids are at or above grade level. So when we grow them from year to year, we're growing them and they're still on level. But we don't have as much room to grow as some others. So the state is going to change their metric. I'm really kind of excited how that's going to work. They're actually going to, what I'm hearing from Andrew and corroborated this, they've done some listening to her, is they are now going to almost value them forward. One of them is going to create it. I'm glad that this finally happened, but I was disappointed to see that this is where we landed considering that our speech. The next slide, I'll tell you why. So this is my favorite graph. Thank you. This is a scatter plot of like schools in Illinois. So the red triangle is us. So based on our size of school and demographics, that's where we are performing in relation to other schools. So schools that are like us, there's only a few of them above us in the triangle. So I like to use this because if we're going to compare, I think we need to have a comparison of performance, not just. So when I looked at this in the state of Illinois, there's only a few schools in our suburban schools that have our similar characteristics that scored higher than us when it comes to. So our goal as educators in our career, we have high expectations from our students to meet it. I think these graphs show that that's what we're doing. This was ELA, and the next one was math. So we are performing very well in relation to our state peers when it comes to proficiency. We are just for this year, we are not being recognized for the proficiency because of growth. So if you can go to the next slide, what does this mean for PHS? As I mentioned, chronic absenteeism and the survey were areas of growth that we looked at last year. We made growth. We did continue to maintain the highest level of proficiency according to the state. However, we are going to look at our growth opportunities because, it's going to be different. Growth is still important. We still want our students to grow. Even if they're at attainment of higher level, we do want them to grow. We have limited growth opportunities. So in essence, our growth opportunity, because we only have third and fourth grade in our building, it's only that 1 year of growth. So it's how our current fourth graders last year did in relation to third grade. If Prairie Hill was a A5 band, then we have 2 cohorts to grab growth. So it really is just year to year to see those growth numbers. There was a really high performing third grade group, and they just kind of maintained that growth. There's going to be that much before. So it's just 1 year that we get measured growth. As I had alluded to, the SY25, that last school year was reliant on growth, almost 60%. We're still going to look for ways to maintain and improve our growth numbers. But this is what I've been hearing from the grapevine. I'll let you know when it's officially official. It'll probably won't be until fall of next year. But when they look at our metrics for next year, I'm hearing from the state that they're going to look at both of them, and whichever indicator is higher is going to fully trigger your review. So I'm hopeful that we maintain our high level of proficiency, and that will end up carrying the day when they the rest of it. They will still. This is really only in our. I think as a kids assessment part of it too. Not excellent. So it's just those 2. Yeah, just those 2.
It's just measuring.
It's just measuring. It's just measuring.
The snapshots.
Yeah. I did, if you go to the next one, this was a communique, and basically from ISD, we got this in October, and I really want you to look at the second paragraph, first line, where it says the current system has been mislabeling school in much the same way. Our assessments once misidentified students, so they're having a proposed redesign. I did not go to any of those listening sessions. However, I did at the board training just kind of get some hands clarity. They're still working on it. I'm expecting to get more information about how the report card is going to be calculated next month. So, do you have any other questions about Prairie Hill? Overall, as a very proud, our team was very proud of the proficiency. Our students continue to perform at a high level.
You go back. Something that isn't noted on there, and I think maybe I guess just not wanting to brag, which is fine, but I'll do it for him. Greg made a pretty bold decision last year to move math to the afternoon. Sorry, move math from the afternoon to the morning in our 2 grade levels that do math. And then to have done the IAR. So 3rd and 4th grade moved their math from the afternoon to the morning. And he did so with an IAR math system. And they had significant growth. And I attribute a lot of it to that bold decision we made for the year. I'll get into our numbers in a little bit more, but I just want that's an overview. very, of a, so it's one that. So something that we have that very does not have is the finance. Because that is the one that we create, so that is used in our report. So if you look, you can see that both in ELA and math, we met the requirement of the state contract to be in your 100% proficient in this category. However, if you look a little bit more closely at ELA growth and the math growth, this is the area where we're not scoring as high. But part of the reason for that is because, like Craig had mentioned, we are so high performing and we do so well that it's hard to kind of shows them growth from year to year because we found things like we do down slow or do well or still do well, but there's not necessarily that growth or volume. Absolutely.
Sorry. So the levels are like, so we had, just to explain this, there are 4 levels that were reported, so the the highest level, we had several students in 3rd grade that were above proficient, they also achieve above proficient the next year, but they didn't. They're above proficient and above proficient, but they didn't. So those were just
So like,
Yeah.
I mean, to that point, when you have kids who are doing really well, we have our teachers are doing their things, and they're doing the right things. But there's not a good gap. We are by doing those areas, but because there's some. Looking a little bit further. ELA, so remember we're red triangle. So we are actually a little bit smaller in size, still feed for a middle school. So that's why we're on the left side of that vertical line, but we are still greatly above the state average as far as performance goes in ELA. So that's really high. We do. So math is always the kicker for us in this building. Math team knows it, Tim and I know it. That knows it, we talk about it all the time, and I can't say that it's for lack of effort, but we are working on that. But you can see here, like same thing, we're a little bit smaller than a typical middle school. However, we are still performing above the state average, so we're still doing well. But you can see we're not as high above the state average as our region. So that's an area that we are definitely focusing on and have been, I would say, probably since I heard a little bit. It's something that we're trying to figure out kind of what's going on there and why there is that difference. But overall, really good things like little growth, we improved not only ELA growth, but also chronic absenteeism, science survey, and math growth, and science proficiency. So out of the 7, I believe we have 5 areas that we grew in a positive direction. So that's a positive thing. Like I mentioned, ELA and math both had 100% efficiency, but our growth rates are just different there. ELA, we had 72% of our growth rate, and then for math, we had 36%. Science, we were 96% proficient. And so all of that was definitely positive that year. Areas of growth, as I kind of mentioned, math is something that we have room for improvement on. Something that Kim and I actually talked about often is trying to figure out what exactly it is, because as you guys know, or some of you might know, there was a period of time when we went around like a 42-minute standard class in a block. So they're essentially having 80 minutes of math. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think the intent there is to try to get kids into as many kids into honors geometry in high school as we possibly can. So I think with that shift, what the team kind of determined with Tim and I in conversation discussions is some of that focus on the content
maybe took away from some of the focus that needed to be happening on the whole content that they're affected on IAR, if that makes sense. So sometimes as fifth graders, they were having standards and exposure to sixth grade standards prior to taking the IAR. Or when the IAR came, maybe we had to hit the standard after fifth grade, like they needed to before. That's one of the theories that we kind of come together with as a team. The other thing that's worth noting is there has been a significant amount of turnover in the math department, and not because people are leaving because they're unhappy, but like my friends are retired, and feels retired. There's been a couple different replacements that they've before that and just some like mixing up, and now we have, so if you think we can, happy as we say, we're going to go before third year, 6 plus years, or second, third year. And so really we have like Colette and Betty are students that who are more veterans, but they're still in the same business. So it's not a bad thing. They all have really great math knowledge and they work really well together as a team. But sometimes it just takes some time to develop what really works and help fit with some of that content. The other thing with the block to consider is that in order to make other parts of our schedule more flexible, we have all of the math for grade level at 1 period in your day. So like, for example, math has 8th grade math is always from 8:26 to 9:48. So like every day, all 8th graders have math at that time. In order to make that work, our math team is spread out amongst all grades. So for example, if I'm teaching math, I'm teaching 6th grade math, 7th grade math, and 8th grade math today. For like in an elementary model, or like when we were prior before we block, it was like one teacher would teach, 1 or 2 teachers would teach all of those things, 1 or 2 teachers would teach all of this grade. So you get to become a little bit more expert on that topic or on that content. And so I think right now they're kind of spreading themselves thin, but maybe not into a specific. So it's an ongoing conversation about the pros and cons of block right now. It has been basically for quite a few years now. We also have the math department is working with the ROE in a program called Math. So that's a professional development training that they're working on to better instruct learners of all different. And so it allows them different tools and aspects and planning to kind of tap into the differentiation that we get to grab and how some of that. The last thing that I will mention with math, some of these students are like our 7th graders, and you'll know, or 1st grade, I got over, right? Right. So when we look at that a little bit, we wonder if sometimes there are some kiddos who just haven't reached fully that some of those foundational skills. So if I was telling you today, I was working in the office with a kiddo with algebra, and not only do they have to do algebra, they have to know the facts, they have to know how to multiply and divide correctly, and they have to know how to inverse operation, and then sometimes they have to know they'll throw in like a perimeter question and a area question using all of those skills. But sometimes it's a matter of maybe they're missing some of that. I can tell you in talking to both Rockville principals that there's not enough data points right now for math for them. Way plan that they are developing similar to the literacy plan that they came out with, they are trying to address some of the things.
That's a great point on YouTube, but sometimes it's more interesting to compare a number to last year's performance. You can see those headlines. And thanks to the state new cut scores, I can't do that this year. I could give you what we did at each level of performance last year, but this year those cut scores have completely changed. In the past, there was 5 levels of performance. There was exceeding grade level expectations, meeting grade level expectations, and then 3 levels of failure. I don't know why they decided to focus on those 3 levels of failure, but they did. So there's a number of reasons why I linked here. If anyone's really curious about why they decided to change the cut scores, it's about a 40-page slideshow from the state superintendent if you want to, but I figured you would get kind of the most important points there. Essentially, they went from 3 levels of failure go down to 2. So now there's 4 levels of performance. By the way, if you're familiar with the term meets and exceeds, I say it in my sleep sometimes at night. Those terms don't exist anymore. It's now proficiency and I believe above proficiency. But so those terms have kind of gone. So now there's 4 levels of performance. So it's completely impossible to put last year's data next to this year's data. Every kind of sort of book. Why is basically, well, the 2 first bullet points there kind of summarize that. What they were finding is that there were a number of students in Illinois, they literally, the slideshow is kind of interesting. They actually have like profiles of actual students. For whatever reason, there's a Naperville high school student highlighted, a New Career one, a Libertyville one, they're like, and these are kids who went to high performing schools, Ivy League colleges, and never met on the IER. And so they said something's not adding up here. And in some cases, that can be a really damaging thing to share with a student or family if their child is not at grade level expectation, because it puts in motion a proposed path about what that child is capable of long term, like why helps kids and families set realistic goals and things like that. And the state decided that they were not comfortable with the way they were rating students. It wasn't necessarily providing an accurate prediction of what kids were capable of. And one of the reasons I can say we use this data is it helps us to inform and drive our instruction. And if our kids are not doing well, we pause and we ask why and we make changes. And the state decided that those cut scores, being the way they were not great indicators for teachers in schools to make educational instruction. So those are the reasons for the new cut scores. The frustrating part for me is that I can't really analyze comparative data, which is really a fun thing for me to do, but can't really do it here. I will say this is a really interesting component that in math and in ELA, they lowered the cut scores. Okay, so generally more people exceeded than in math. With science, they raised the cut scores. Nothing in that presentation tells you why. I asked a couple of people who I know went to the summer seminar where they did that, and I'm trying to quote them almost exactly. It was to bring it more in line with the math and ELA expectation. I can tell you, years ago, obviously, I've been in school a little bit. Been in school a little bit. When the science scores came out, they always ELA. We're talking like 96, 97% proficient. And you might remember this. There was also a year, or many years, where there was no science tested, or they didn't give us any data. When it comes to the state telling us how we are performing in science. So ideally, hopefully, I'm taking this as a good sign that they're putting the subject a little bit more under a microscope and making important changes to the way that we are measuring and assessing science. But for the right now, the thing to notice is to make notice that they actually raised the cut score, bringing it more in. So, and we did very much that. If you want to go to the next slide. These are our numbers by grade level. Before we make any, judgments here, I just want you to recognize that cohorts every student in every cohort of students is its own individual miracle. And there's a lot going on there. I don't necessarily look for, that's why that comparative data is so interesting and so important, because you can kind of track trends as opposed to just looking at one particular grade level with a low percent. But that's where they are right now. ELA, really fabulous, and we've continued to be fabulous, and, I didn't bother putting on the state averages for grades. Math, I did put the state averages in there. It's kind of an important thing for us to be aware of because there are a few low numbers in there that kind of make it tough. So just for you to recognize what the state average proficiency levels are. By the way, this numbers are the number of kids that are proficient and above. That indicated. And then our science down there is at the bottom, and once again, the state average is next to that. So those are vastly different than what I seen before. Again, not necessarily in this position, but when I was teaching ELA, that a very large. So definitely, like I said, bring more in line with math. You can go ahead to the next slide. And then this one is a little bit more just broad strokes. So here's where we are at right now with PHS, WMS, and the corporate district. ELA is doing very, very well. Like I said, we're about 85% proficient in the class. Math is at 60 right now. I can tell you that is a rise from what it was last year. I believe last year was 58% proficient or meeting proficiency. But unfortunately, like I said, I can't really say that because they changed all the test scores. So it's kind of creating a false image to suggest that we went up. I truly can't tell you. But I will say, and I did look back once again, can't say this completely clearly because doing so is impossible when I'm comparing apples to apples. But last year, PHS, now I'm not going to get this. Last year, PHS's unique and exceed scores were 60%. And they went up to 65%. And they went up to again, not apples to apples, but huge vast improvement. I believe we don't have to go back, but I think math scores in third grade were 87%. And then we have our science scores done there. Obviously, PHS doesn't take any science tests, so we only have the WMS. The U.S. News and World Report publishes this every year. Prairie Hill is number 78 in terms of elementary schools in the state. Out of 3,417 elementary schools, we have number 78 in the top. And all of the schools in the state. And Willowbrook is number 37 out of 2,554 schools, top 1.4% of the state. So one thing I want you to keep in mind is although, yes, our math scores are a point of contention, point of conversation for all of us. Sorry, not a point of conversation. Yeah. The entire state is struggling with this trend, and as you can see, those low scores don't bring it lower than our elementary school in the area of the population. So something to keep in mind there. I was extremely pleased with our scores last year. Our teachers are working their butts off and they are seeing the results of that. That's kind of it. I know that was there's a lot there, so if you have any questions, if you can free of it, information. It's a lot of data consolidation going on in this lecture, so there's a lot more with that. You're good.
So my big thing is the factor education. Hi.
All right, so education, salaries are a big part of the tax levy there. Curriculum supplies and obviously insurance, health insurance, benefits, that sort of thing. Last year we requested 3.841 million. This year we're requesting 3.93 million. If we can have the cost of living, yeah, that's the thing. So 102,000 extra dollars. If you remember, we get a good chunk of change from the state as well, so we put the state and the local tax levy together help make up our education part. As far as operations and maintenance, that is strictly tax levy. At times, we are able to kind of shift some money from time to time if need be, but generally, the majority of our money for operations and maintenance comes from tax levy. Last year, we were at 785,000. This year, we're requesting 1,000 again, keep up with CPI, cost of living, that sort of thing. And also some anticipated expenditures. I've had this for the last couple of years. But it's definitely something we need to take a look at. A couple of scissor lists or at least one for one of the buildings that maybe we can share between the two. And then over at Prairie Hill, just starting some these classroom flooring, starting to, it's the same kind of flooring as this, it's carpet squares, and they're just getting old. And so we need to start working our way into new flooring to replace that. And then there's some other things we don't need to do for the summer, but those are some big things, obviously, with education as well. Salaries make up a big part of that from our maintenance staff, our custodial staff. IMRF, this is the non-certified staff retirement funds. Last year we were at 95,000, requesting 101,500 this year. And essentially that's their, any individual that works for us, we contribute to their Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund. And we do have more employees this year than we had last year. And I'll pay the cost of living, so that's why the community is there. Same thing with Social Security, 155,000, requesting $11,500 more. That. Transportation. Last year we did an effort to, we had a decent sized fund balance for transportation. And so we did request as much, we requested 150,000. So we spent some of that down a little bit on purpose. And so this year, to keep up with the contract and the 5% increase from first students, we're requesting an extra 80,000 there. We will still be spending a little bit down from the fund balance, but also transportation is something that we get from the state too. It's not reimbursable at 100%. There's this big formula that we put together that gives the amount of money that we give it to quite right to us and that sort of thing. And I've mentioned to the board as well the last couple, 2-3 months that, you know, they're saying state mandated categoricals, transportation being one of them. They might start cutting that off a little bit. So we're just being a little bit more proactive and we can just pay a little bit more money there than we did last year. Working cash, that's just kind of our fund that we can use for any of the other funds if need be. And typically, since I've been here, we put about 5,000 in there. Fire prevention and safety, same sort of thing. We can use this money for health and life safety funds. We've always put about 10 grand in there. We've done a really nice job of spending down our health and life safety survey that we've gotten from Gold, which is our architects. We have a new one this year, and we've got about $140,000 in the fund balance right now, which will help us start taking care of those categories. We can see these are the ones that take care of the 150 meters. B's and C's are within like 5 to 7, 7 to 10. So, we've got a good plan there. Fire prevention and safety money. And then special education always seems to be more. We can use a lot of our general education money for special education, but this is very good at just special education. There's never a shortage in needing money for that. So, we bumped that up to 85. So if you just take a look, kind of trends, and I know that's really tough to see, but just to give you an idea, tax levy money, 3.194 back in 2020 to 3.824 in 2024 and 363. I'm sorry, 3824, 323 in fund balance for tax levy money there. Same thing with O&M. We've increased that pretty exponentially. That's had a lot to do with just we're finally able to be full staff for custodial and maintenance across the board, as well as starting to make some upgrades and
Transportation stayed pretty stagnant, about the same over the last several years. And then fire prevention and safety is about the same as well. If you take a look at the fund balances for FY25, which we did the budget in July, we had $3.638 million in that fund balance. O&M, we had 101,971. Transportation, 436,686, which is why we're spending that down a little bit. And then fire prevention and safety of 127,177. So we want there. And then you can see kind of a representation of the graphs below on what we look for as far as the education. And another key factor to this is just our EAV, which is our equalized assessed value. Assessed value of the land and property improvements within the district. And that has steadily gone up since I've been here, but the graphs we showed 2021 to 2025. We've gone up about $70 million. And that has to do with some properties that have been built, some commercial properties that have come along. And then as we have more housing developments and we have more commercial properties that are also. Like assessed value, I was pretty up on the street, it's gone up a lot, 10% each year. Yep. You're getting now. The tax levy money, 2020, we fill in about 5. Just like with that? Yeah. So that's typically, we typically will request up to that 5%, to capture the money that we. Yep. Okay. So that's probably the direct correlation. Got it. That makes sense. Yep.
Fund balance, because you have like there right now. That's like,
Yep, that's from July 1.
okay.
So, and that, as we talked about, Justin, that kind of fluctuates a little bit. We'll probably play around. We will have, based upon those numbers, we'll have to take a roll call vote with that. We can take that.
Second. Sorry, yes.
Question, just a follow up from my notes, I just wrote a while back. Question about coaches collecting money. Yeah, no, is that something we'll never? Yeah, we'll going forward. No, it's fine. I just asked if someone asked me because they ever get broader understandings of where.
So,
Yeah, I see it.
Higher
Could get people.
I think it would get
Just speak to a person.
I think it would need to be perfectly clean. So if I had
Yeah.
Hello, Lindsay. Yep.
Yeah.
Roll level.
Yep.
Roll level. I don't pay for those.
Maybe they, right?
Well, your president is so funny.
Okay.
He's long gone.
Yeah.
So we talked about this as a pal, and we talked about for the last couple of months, how possibility that was the principal position for the district. And, we talked about it at length, and I've answered a few questions, just individually, as well as a good conversation on that side of the committee as a whole. But since the principals are here, if there's anything specific principal related, if you'd like to ask, I feel like this would be a good time to kind of expand that conversation a little bit. I shared with you some graphics that Jackie and Craig put together as far as kind of their time delineation, throughout the patients, and things from here. And just kind of the idea behind this with just some different behaviors that we're seeing across the coast of the district, as well as just the different responsibilities for the administrators and how that's just become more over the last several years. So, do you have any specific questions or anything that you would like to have any comments on?
Then you could, one position is thorough. Yeah, this makes it feel like one.
Yep.
One each.
Quick question, we talked a lot about ratios of admin. Go on. When, but we relatively, when was there a bird added?
Second year.
Same here, I started in this role, so it's
1920.
No, 20.
Oh.
No, 20, 20.
Oh,
Okay.
19
So she was half-time special education teacher, and half-time special education supervisor, but not as a.
That was until that 1920 school year, that's when she became full-time.
Yes. Yep.
I think like when I was looking back at the breakdown of definitive time, I was just wondering how much he's being utilized for like IT meetings, that sort of thing, and he's present and all, I think for the principal session. Have to be for the.
I don't think it's okay, because of the load. Okay, so right now, and I can give you the exact number, I know that the load. So it's the first, so I bring up. And last Thursday special scenario. Oh, so every, you're asking on the A, at every, so at Willow Road, I'm doing all of them. Okay. On the last Thursday special for the or as far as your building, I don't know if that does with them. So yeah, we did some tests that I can say for Willow Road for the back. Now that shifts maybe from year to year, but I would say
General per time is to, so if we're looking at me as a person, that at next time is real.
and I think what, I mean, I don't know. But, they didn't.
long. I think that's what you.
My only other question was, what kind of feel do you have for, that's community stuff? So like, if this were to be something that I'm done, do you think it's going to be positively by staff or looked at? And like, you want how to, that's just.
I feel like that's the thing, you know.
I also. What I did. Out there, time, some of those things right. So like, when I'm at recess at lunch, it's just, I know where there's myself, there's certain things, certain things don't happen. But by he's there, I'm missing potentially all of the land that are leading that. I want to do, like, a Monday, I probably had a so that stuff I often. So a lot of it is that we don't see kind of thing as the more important. Unless maybe have, we are.
Oh, what we had. In my experience, we handle it in half.
There's nothing for over something yet.
I
like forward failing and everything, you know, like, because you would have liked to talk more. Just like. Um, So knowing whether or not like we say or to say that we're not. Or I will offer staff member, I might say, send them a text or email like, hey. So we wanted.
I guess.
And you go, oh.
Hey, cursory, I mean, this, we're not counting, we're not counting. You guys, I mean,
We talked, I don't know that we talked about that way, but I think when the people can acknowledge something. That, we already talked about it, something has to be out of the building, like that for. Happy, if there is something or that happens, our hope would be that they have. With the exception of, or absence, or if it's a crisis that comes up. All of our staff. I
Frustration, because it comes from that.
I agree with you. We're part of the training, and it was, if I'm controlling this pretty.
Do you foresee, at the addition of this person affecting, like, if your lack of time right now is affecting other people, like, let's say it's a secretary in the main office that has to cover your things that you need to be doing, or, if a teacher's gone and you will cover the class and help control for the, so do you see there being a trickle down where there's such a positive impact on other staff members covering that stretch?
And maybe not. But I.
Like, this could improve the experience of the secretary.
That. Not get over it. I'm on. The cars and things like that. Okay. But. Plan to district to be. Yeah, so there's unusual countries out there, we've never utilized one statistics, but it's definitely something to tap into. So they take a look at the past 30-year projection carrying forward. I can give you the Justin, but I can't get to finite numbers, I think it's specialized something like. I do know other districts that are using people, if that's private one, there are others as well, and find out, but that's something that we want to do. I think we're gonna be a cost involved with that. Everything, but if that's something that we want to go through. Find some companies and see what cost look like and I think to get us suppliers and what that.
About how to applying higher duties.
Correct.
It's not neutral.
Essentially.
What we say is with hiring and lower salary, saving with the higher salary, like how much I done.
Yeah. Hopefully.
So it really doesn't affect it, but it's not gonna increase the part.
Double down.
It has to sit in our.
Like it's good being expected, but they still, they come in as experience. Yeah, yeah, still like that, I think it'll be good. Offsets the cost of what's like that.
Every other.
Yep. Uh, This file. Yeah. I would do. Yeah, so like Tina said, retirement definitely help with that. Also, the money that we have in fund balances, like we have those in money markets and CDs and that sort of thing, so everybody can touch off with it. That definitely helps. You know, we recoup some of that cost as far as. No, I know you. It's tough to say, and we can't stand on the top of the tree, but I do believe in the next 3 to 5 years. We have opportunity. I know you can't say it's 100% right. 1% sales tax, that comes to fruition. March, but that can help with some things, or ship some money, so. Again, I know it's nothing that's concrete right now, but those are things in my mind that we don't. Yeah, I would go, like, assuming it's it will be on the ballot. Yes. Yep.
The other thing that was, because that's dependent on is, so on the safety bond, a little bit more in Hey,
Correct.
put down a lot of big money.
Yep. Yeah, and all that Bob Lewis told me that. Probably, come to with you, but it's not what I could look like.
The third fire, Bob Lewis is the same person.
Yes, right, yep, and talk about the sales tax.
So have we reached out to the whole believe at this point to see how we can raise different items in the legislative?
Yeah, we're having conversations, we don't have anything that we go right now.
That would be another thing, I was just like, just the amount of stuff that we could use, dollar would be another thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, okay, that's cool.
Finding out, so like, or then, yeah, but obviously. You put up an April, you know, we get the bid for August and into the person right now, I mean, yeah. Yeah, we.
Timeline will be to get it going to be ready. I get all of them.
Any concerns with this, for study? Or has it been like it's stepping stone statement or somebody that wants to do it for years, then you know, but I think sure that could be a concern in any position anywhere, but because it's a little bit lower paying, this kind of another position. You don't have to be a person.
Yeah, and I would say, I mean, just full transparency, the interim position, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's typically one that most people don't stay here.
Right.
They use it as a stepping stone. So I guess my thought would be if we could give 3 to 5 years out of an individual, like that would be capped out. Because a lot of times, I wouldn't say, I can't imagine somebody, unless they absolutely treated it, that they do that. I'd say 2 to 3 given for sure. 10 years for a position like this to work, right? Because especially in small district like ours, the focus would be on behaviors, but we give them opportunities to do a lot of other things. What they do, learn from actually Ray and Sarah and myself, and that's a lot more opportunities than maybe we ever have. You're pretty much just where you are, where you are. So it's a unique position. We talked about that. The focus would be student behavior, absolutely, but there would be opportunities for other things.
My only thing that is justifying, like when Justin's bringing up, in terms of expense, is justifying the yes to this, but no doubt. Like, I think it's very justifiable when we talk about the reasons for it. Makes me nervous to say yes to them. No, and just for the other things in the future, we're going. So one of them,
So, that's really like. No, you didn't. On a day-to-day basis, or? Yes, this is hospital. Day-to-day. Somebody else do it.
like the physical, like the time requirements for items. Like server could not physically yell. To be yelling. They overlap, language.
Yes.
You know, with the overlap. There's a lot of all of that. Yeah. All of them. Um,
Finance, they did brought up the. Maybe our people, as far as like in the shorter term, throughout the because of long term stuff and. Everyone, doesn't further time. That is the shorter term thing, that was better, or do we just, you guys. Becoming the higher. Learning. If we did do it now, we're doing it in a year.
maybe I have. I will still say. I also. I started with. Like, we were like, everybody was double. And I don't mean double digits, I mean, like, they have been here for double digits, like, they're not. Yeah, but like, there was. If even though. Anymore. And I think the world of my staff and talk so about everybody, but I think there are some learning curves and some opportunities for growth and handling behaviors that would make my life less chaotic during the day sometimes. But I don't have the time to separate and try to figure out what those features because I like to know what the expect. There's something that I think that. So I think that the staff here is a bit younger. Just because of labor techniques. I think there's also zone. That's not good. That. Everyone, everyone. There's valuable like.
um, you know, we're trying to get this really, if you have some prep, like, or you have some greater need. But we are incoming. Here and there, you know. I think there's some. The challenge for support. That's one even better, but do you feel comfortable with those?
I just feel the need is there. I'm gonna have strong concerns. I can have the retirees coming up, which is eventually going to COVID. I think it is a land.
Yay.
What's that?
Yay. Yeah. Vote in favor. Yep. Double, yeah. Oh. I knew it started at 6:30, so I was saying,
Yeah.
I knew
She
it,
keeps texting me, where are you, where are you? I'm like, I'm coming.
I knew it was 6:30, so it was okay. I just thought, oh, right then. Yep. All right, yeah, okay, I'll leave it on both. Sure, I didn't find anything I'm making sure. I know.
I'll take it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Pretty sure they're probably taking the first one's point. Yeah.
There's still form.
I was just gonna say, is there anything else?
You got it.
That was one, if you want. I guess policy is kind of the next thing. It's put a summary sheet of some of the stuff that I do. I think we can go over most of that at the town meeting. I just looked into the few policies that I had previous for. Maybe the only thing to know from principal that here is there's some nice changes in how you're supposed to what you're supposed to inform parents on. Correct, of any kind of firearm safety issue. You have to tell parents that they can access to firearm health information. Otherwise, it gets a little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Already seconded.
Otherwise, yeah, first reading. Honestly, the changes in policy are very light, despite the press release looking very. A lot of it was just footnotes. But It's got appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, employment, or personal, civic employees. I see the two things. Five, yeah, no.